والصلاة والسلام الأتمان الأكملان على خير خلق الله نبينا وحبيبنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه أما بعد. All praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We praise Him and glorify Him. We ask Him to send perfect peace and blessings upon our noble Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Beginning, my dear respected brothers and sisters, let me first say that it's a very warm feeling to be in this respected gathering. I'd like to encourage the organizers to continue in this vein, to arrange sessions like these where knowledge can be disseminated. As we know, knowledge is the start of even the topic that we're going to discuss. Before delving into the topic itself, I was asked just to clarify the title. The title really is Ulubul Himma. It's two words, Ulu and Himma. We put them together. It could mean things like an insatiable appetite, also a thirst and a hunger for, or a very ambitious and aspiring person. So in this regard, closest word that I could find would be the word voracity. But let's not pay too much attention to the wording of it, but the content of what it really speaks to. Firstly, ulu, the word ulu تدل على الارتفاع وهم بالشيء إذا نواه وأراده وعزم عليه. Ulu refers to anything that is elevated. Of the meanings of ulu is anything that is elevated. And a himma, you say a person hamma bishay, if he wanted to do something or he intended to do something, he committed to doing that thing and he persisted in getting it done. He ensured that it was done. So putting those two together, an elevated status in terms of your spirit to ensure that you have an appetite for a particular deed, for something, and also to commit to that and to persist in your pursuit. علو الهمة كما عند المناوي عدم المبالاة بسعادة الدنيا وشقاوتها. Al-Imam al-Munawi in his book At-Tawqif says that voracity, and when we say voracity in our gathering here, we're referring to that definition that was given earlier on. So just remember that. So Imam al-Munawi says that voracity is that position that a person reaches when he has very little regard to the luxuries of this life. I'm not saying that he might not be involved in it, but he has very little regard to the luxuries of this life. And he also belittles the trials and tribulations of this life. Pay attention to these definitions, because the ulama would choose specific terminology to coin a definition. And the qualities of this definition is that it will include everything that it is meant to represent, and it will exclude the things that it is not meant to represent. So, I think it is very instructive from this definition to take note of the 2 points. That in order to be a voracious person in this deen, and now we're adding restrictions, because a person could have this same quality for wrong. A person can have the same quality for evil and they might get through in things. That is a natural laws. It's like gravity. Just like gravity, if you drop something, it will fall. If you drop matter, it will fall. So if you exert effort, you will reap benefit. This is normal. This is a natural law. Muslim, non-Muslims alike. So it's now to restrict this so that we have a level of focus in our discussion. And this we're specifically talking about veracity as it pertains to our deen, as it pertains to our way of life. فلا يرضى بالهمم الحيوانية قدر وسعه فلا يصير عبد بطنه وفرجه بل يجتهد أن يتخصص بمكارم الشريعة. So in this regard, a person has to ensure, if he wants to have this quality of veracity in his life, he has to ensure that he's not enslaved to his bodily desires, his human desires. He has to ensure that he is not enslaved, in other words, to his stomach. Rather, he has to work hard and endure as he pursues the beautiful traits of the Sharia. Because this is all it's about. Prophet ﷺ mentions in a hadith, as we go in Tirmidhi, إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. This is a strongly worded hadith. And those of you who know Arabic, when you use the word inna, it's for emphasis, and when you use the word ma as an addition, the prefix then becomes innama. And innama is a strong tool in language. It means that whatever is going to be mentioned, or whatever will be mentioned after, is exactly as is. It's only that. So the statement reads like this, that surely I was sent only to perfect good conduct or morality. So Prophet ﷺ is saying what? I was sent to perfect morality or good conduct. So the implications of this hadith and all of its meanings and so on, as the subject of another discourse. However, I want you to pay attention to the emphasis that is placed on conduct, to how we carry about ourselves and manage ourselves. يتحرى الفضائل لا لجاه ولا لثروة ولا للذة. And as we conclude the understanding of علو الهمة, it's important as well to add the following guideline, that the person should be meticulous about his intention. That is to say, that whatever he is going to do, and however he is seeking to cultivate this sense of veracity within his deeds and within his life, then it has to be without a need for status. It has to be without a need and a desire or an inclination towards rank and status. Likewise, it cannot also be for wealth or for the accumulation of wealth. And it also cannot be just out of desire. Not because I have a personal liking to this and I'm pursuing it. No. All of what was mentioned with respect to veracity would basically give us an idea of the concept of veracity in Islam, inshallah. Everything that was just said, including the very last point, which has to do with the objective or the intention. And also interesting, وَلَوْ يَفْعَلُ ذَلِكَ وَلَوْ قَلَّ مُصَاحِبِهِ فَإِنَّهُ إِذَا عَاضُمَ الْمَطْلُوبِ قَلَّ الْمُسَاعِدِ. And so, just to give you a little bit knowledge of what will most likely happen if you were to become such a person, is that more than likely you will have little friends. That's not to say that you don't have people who are very highly spirited. No. But if you adopt veracity in this context, then your friends will become, or the circle of friends will shrink, and it will shrink. For certainly there's a law, and that law is that whenever there is a noble objective, or whenever the nobility of something that's being sought after is very high, the friends around you to help support that, or to assist you in achieving that, it grows proportionately smaller. Again, the better it is, or the more noble, the higher rank something that you're seeking after is, the less help, more than likely, you can expect to get. So these are basically, brothers and sisters, some guidelines and an introduction as to what veracity is in our context that we're discussing here tonight in Islam. Moving on, إن معالي الأمور محفوفة بالمكارم والعلم أرفع مقام تطمح إليه الهمم وأشرف غاية تتسابق إليه الأمم فلا يخلص إليه الطالب دون أن يقاسي شدائد ويعتمد المتاعب. As we begin our journey, my dear brothers and sisters, you cannot expect that it is going to be an easy road. Refer to the introduction. You must be a person who is starting off your journey, a person that's belittling the trials or the difficulties that you face in this dunya. Let me bring that to a practical example. If you sleep for 6 hours, even 8, if you sleep 8 hours within a 24-hour period, you will more than likely feel rested. If you sleep for six hours, more than likely you feel rested, but you might feel an urge to take an extra hour. And so it will continue. If you sleep for 4, you might feel a greater need. But in reality, you don't really need it. So there's a level of discomfort. So if you are willing to accept that level of discomfort, then this is cut out for you. Then this job of veracity is cut out for you. Then you're well on your way to emulating those persons who had this quality of veracity. And these are the highest achievers in the world. The highest achievers in the world all had this quality. Every single one of them. But like I said, it can be used for good, and it can also be used for evil. So we call it towards what was introduced in Islam, in Islam, veracity in Islam. And the very first objective you look at, how do we now take this zeal? This controlled zeal, I should say, is a specific type of zeal. How do we now take this and ensure that we climb the ladder, step 1, then 2, then 3, and following on? How? Because there is a problem. Everyone seems to be going up the ladder, but the ladder is made up of steps. It is difficult to get to step 2 if you don't cross step 1. And more than likely, the persons who try to jump to 2 might break their legs by skipping the first one. So we want to ensure that this zeal is controlled and it conforms to our Sharia. So what's the first step? Now that you have this zeal, or now that you understand what veracity is, the first step, my dear brothers and sisters, is the most honorable, and that is knowledge. That is knowledge. perception of something that can be perceived. Knowledge is to have an accurate perception of something that can be perceived. People can have many perceptions about different things, so it could be classed as information. But the one that is correct is classed as knowledge. And this is what we want. We want to know that when they teach us that this cloth is white, that is the correct perception. That this cloth is really white. So if somebody were to say that this cloth is really green, then their understanding of the reality of the color is wrong. That's not knowledge. There's misinformation. So knowledge is the first and it's the most honorable step in the ladder that we're taking. And it is actually the most sought after quality among all nations. I just want to take you back to the history of libraries, for example, in Islam, and contemporary history. During the days when, for example, in Spain, when the Muslims were in control, and they were very, they had a lot of states under their control. They had power, they had wealth, everything was basically subjected to them, they had everything. Who had the largest library in the world? The Muslims. And it was in Baghdad. Fast forward, my dear brothers and sisters, who has the largest library in the world today? Anybody could guess? Try a guess. Who has the largest library in the world today? It's not bad to have a large library, so feel free to say. I guess. Huh? Yeah, that's correct. It's in the US, it's Congress Library. 7 years ago it was 90 million books. I don't know how much now. 7 years ago it was 90 million books. So the idea is that people understand and people recognize the importance of knowledge all over the world. It doesn't matter. And it is directly connected to progress and advancement. So do not for a moment believe that in our pursuit, as we move from on top of the earth to eventually below the earth, don't believe that we can get through this journey without knowledge. It won't work. And especially if you want to be a high achiever. وَلَا يَسْتَهِينُ بِالشَّدَائِدِ إِلَّا كَبِيرُ الْهِمَّةِ. I want you to memorize this one. That a person who is a high achiever always belittles difficulty. Try this. Even if you have to pretend. Try this. Even if you have to pretend. Pretend that what is difficult for you, I'm talking about something in pursuit of knowledge now, we just talk about knowledge. Ibadah. I'm going to look at the categories in a while. Categories for focus. Right? Pretend, even if it is, let us say, that you had a class to go to for knowledge, and it was difficult, because you had to get into a vehicle, you had to open a gate, you had to close the gate, and then you had to go to a class, sit there, and then all of that is afterward. All of that is afterward, and probably you're still hungry. Pretend, really try to convince yourself that it's not difficult. And you'll see, if you practice that, inshallah, you're on your way, inshallah. This is what the high achievers do, and it becomes common practice. So you can see, they could answer a call 2 a.m. in the morning, if it is related to the advancement. Advancement guided by veracity. Veracity, as explained in understand where this is headed. And even after that, they can wake up some minutes before Fajr to offer a prayer. Or they can wake up a little bit during the night. It doesn't take 1 second or 2 seconds to say astaghfirullah, that's a dua. But this, my dear brothers and sisters, comes when a person can belittle. When I say belittle, I mean really overlook the difficulty and pretend. Even if you can't do it sincerely to yourself and genuinely, when I say sincerely, I mean genuinely, force it on yourself and you'll see, inshallah, it's work. Time management is key to our exercise. Whatever we're doing, seeking knowledge, your time is your most valuable asset. In Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala set one of the most honorable deeds, and arguably the most honorable deed in Islam, Salah. He set it in specific parameters, and that is time. That is time. So our concept of time has to be accurate. We have to have knowledge of priorities, what to do at what point in the day. So our voracity, our zeal, our ambition has to be guided as well. So we can't say, look, I'm very, very zealous, I need to read this entire book. And so you forget about time management. And so time for Salah comes and goes, and you didn't understand the priority. You didn't understand how to manage your time. That at that point, the timing for reading had expired. Categories of persons. You can put persons, anyone you can find, you can put them into one out of 4 categories with respect to our topic. Number 1, Ali al-Himma, a person who is a high achiever and a person who has this quality of veracity in him. Special. وَرَجُلٌ عِنْدَهُ كِفَايَةٌ لِعَظَائِمِ الْأُمُورِ, a person who has the competency, a person who has that ability to become a voracious person, or a person with this quality of zeal and high aspiration, a high achiever. He has it. Meaning that if he tried, then he can't belittle the difficulties. He can't belittle the lack of sleep. He can't belittle all of these difficulties, tiredness of the body, physical body, all these things. He can't do it. However, يبخس نفسه فيضع همه في سفاسف الأمور. However, his veracity is guided. So he doesn't know where to place it. And so he places it in trivial matters, matters that don't deserve such attention. As the second. وَرَجُلٌ لَا يُكْفَى بِعَظَائِمِ الْأُمُورِ وَيَحِسُّ بِأَنَّهُ لَا يَسْتَطِيعُهَا. And the third category is like a person who is unable, really, is just unable, doesn't have that capacity. It could be for various reasons. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will only give a person a task that he could bear. So he suffices to what he thinks that he was created to do. So therefore he sets some working boundaries and says that, listen, I can only achieve this. But when you do that, they have a terminology for this in business. We call it the self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like you could achieve as far as you could look at. In other words, similar to this. So they set a boundary for themselves, and maybe that is what they're competent in accomplishing. Allahu Akbar. ورابعهم لا يكفى لعظائم الأمور لكن يتظاهر بأنه مقتضين عليها. This is dangerous section here. The three of them we could work on. The first being the best. However, the fourth one, this is the danger zone. This is where a person he is unable to do it, or he is not a voracious person, but he pretends to be a voracious person. I mean, he does so in a boastful manner. He does so in order for others to see. Refer to the introduction. Our concept of veracity has not to do with rank, has not to do with popularity, has not to do with any of these things. These things might come, but the objective is not these things. And so the fourth category, you'll find that a group of persons, they appear to be busy, always involved in something, trying to get it done. However, subhanAllah, you find that it was not done for the correct reason. It was done for popularity, whatever other reasons. And this category we can easily refer to as al-fakhur, or like a boastful person. من أين ينشأ عظم الهمة? Now where can we find it in ourselves? Or where can we find that spark within ourselves in order to cultivate this veracity? يتربى من طريق الاقتداء أو من طريق تلقين الحكمة. This is excellent advice, my dear brothers and sisters, that you can train yourselves to become voracious or to have this quality by being compliant, or by following, and also by learning from wise people. That means to say, look at the persons who have this quality of veracity, in the Islamic context of course. Look at them and follow them. Follow them and seek advice from the wise ones, especially amongst them. And they will teach you and you will understand how to get it right. Because you need support for this. In no way that you will stand alone and get through with something like this, my dear brothers and sisters. You need support around you, but you need the correct support. من طريق درس التاريخ. The second way, my dear brothers and sisters, you could get this to spark within you is by what Brother Shazad was mentioning, along the lines of looking at the history, or looking at the biographies, specifically biographies of legends in Islam. Look at their biographies, see what they were able to accomplish. And I also happen to know of that same Shaykh, Shaykh Salim. And his story is very incredible indeed. Everyone who knows him, they know about this about him. And he's a living example of people who believe that you cannot seek knowledge beyond 35 or when you get old, because that, I think, was the age, at the age in which he actually started. And just to add to what he mentioned, he actually completed a very powerful book that the Shaykh started to write called Abu al-Bayan. Abu al-Bayan. The name of the Shaykh, Shaykh, he started that about 8 volumes or so. We didn't complete it, subhanAllah, Allah mercy on him, passed away, and then it was Shaykh Salim who was able to complete it. So we can look at the lives of these people, the lives of Bukhari, Muslim, or scholars of Hadith, in terms of their memory, and people memorize the Quran in a month. The determination and stories that really show you persistence. The Sahabi Abu Ayyub al-Ansari who went from Medina all the way to Egypt to meet Amr. So in the hadith, and it barely came off from the caravan or his transport. Once he had fulfilled what he went there for, he heard the hadith, that was it, back up and left. This, my dear brothers and sisters, ought to spark something within you. At least to get up and pray 5 times a day. To start with, my dear brothers and sisters. At least to do it on time. At least to surround it with some sunnah. At least to do some acts of charity. And while we're talking about these high things, do not also think that it implies that the smaller deeds are insignificant. The smaller deeds are very significant. Zubaydah, the wife of Harun al-Rashid, one of the caliphs, she is narrated that she built the first water trough in Mina. If you all know Mina, Mina is not developed, an area in Saudi. It's not developed, it just has tents. So imagine, in those days, they didn't have any water facilities that could get drinking water. So she built a long water trough. So anyways, she passed on, may Allah have mercy on her. A person saw her in a dream. A person saw her in a dream. The Imam for the biggest masjid in Riyadh told me this. He said a person saw her in a dream and he asked her, مَا فَعَلَ اللَّهُ بِكَ? What did Allah do with you? And she said, غَفَرَ لِي. Forgiveness, forgiveness. Forgive me, forgive me. So the person responded, it is the water trough that you did. You did a huge task, a big, big project. So what project? What water project? What water project are you talking about? It was 2 rak'ah that I used to pray in the night time. Small rak'ah, very light. But I used to be persistent with these 2 rak'ah. So don't for a moment, and you have similar stories like this. Similar things like this, my dear brothers and sisters. So don't you think that when we discuss this topic, we're going to try to be only heading for things that appear to be huge and incredible, and memorize the whole book and so on. No, but it's about inculcating a particular attitude with a particular objective in mind. And preserving that throughout your life, which is not an easy thing to do, but which is something that we are required to persevere and to endure all of the difficulties that go with it. So that is the second way, my dear brothers and sisters, that you can find the spark within you to refer to some of the stories of the legends in Islam, how they used to compose books, how they compile, how they memorize hadith, how they memorize Quran, the acts, what they used to do, their deeds and so on. And it does do something to help us recognize that, we only have so long to live. And I just want to digress one minute of the time. Pause for a moment and think about the age that we live in. Almost everyone over the age of 20 today has a first degree. Almost everyone nowadays have a cell phone. Almost everyone nowadays has a computer. Correct? And access. And even if you don't have it, sometimes government make it available to you. But here's this. I want you to just think about something. Go back about 60 years when our grandparents, in my case, our grandparents, when they lived, did they have phones? Did they have vehicles? Even if they had animal rides, it wasn't as fast. And you couldn't get things done quickly. But here's what. They were able to get together and build before build. They imagine yourselves, don't just listen to this as a story. I want you to put yourself in a position. Imagine yourself trying to acquire land, but you have to put away a cell phone. No cell phone and no computer. Go and acquire that. Right? The first thing you want to do when you're going to get a piece of property, you will pick up your phone and call a realtor, and then call a lawyer, and then get somebody to call somebody to call, and so on. Correct? But you put yourself in their position, they acquired land. After acquiring the land, then they build masjids. We're talking about people who don't have expertise in building, they're not experts at building. Then they build buildings which we enjoy today as masjids. And yet still, my dear brothers and sisters, we're talking about a group of people who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guided to do this and cause them to be successful in putting this forward as a huge project, I would say, in service to this deed. And I'm not saying that we're not doing anything in our time, but I'm saying when you look at it comparatively, the wealth that we enjoy today, even the middle class or the lower class among us, I'm not talking about the wealthy ones, even the lower class and the middle class among us, the wealth of one is probably equal to about 10 of those put together. And subhanAllah, we still seem to be building masjids. Imagine if that group had what we had. Education, expertise, equipment, fast vehicles, swiftness in movement, communications, all these things. Wow. Thinking about what we can do to serve this deen, my dear brothers and sisters. It's not a matter for you to do something that Islam is in need of. It's a matter for you getting involved in the game. They've done what they've done, and it was huge. And they're already in the game. It appears as though, my dear brothers and sisters, there's so much to be done in terms of interest-free financial products for our society, our Muslims here. So much to be done in Islamic trade and commerce, in Islamic economics. So much to be done in terms of education and proper education, facilities for women as appropriate, all these things, my dear brothers and sisters, hospitals, universities, all of these things. They're not beyond our scope. We have more talent than we need. All it needs, basically, my dear brothers and sisters, is this quality of veracity which they had previously. They had to have it, or else how without all of this? And no money, they had no money. They barely could buy food to eat. Sometimes they'll go hungry. Go talk to them and find out. And they acquired property and they build masjids. So bear that in mind, my dear brothers and sisters. I think it's very instructive for us in our times that we reflect on things like this. When we're planning to do things or to join in that vein of being productive and progressive and advancing or taking this thing forward now. And of foremost, my importance, my dear brothers and sisters, in the Quran, recitation of the Quran and recitation with pondering and contemplation, that is, even if you have to read it in English, even if you know Arabic and you have to read it in English, read it in English, so that you can get a meaning, you could get something out of it, something of substance, my dear brothers and sisters. Read it once, read it in Arabic and read it in English and back and forth. And that, my dear brothers and sisters, is the third way that you can get a spark out of you to start pushing yourselves to do more and more for this day, for yourselves. For certainly it has all the stories, every single story that you need in terms of veracity, you find it there. It takes a person from the cradle, takes him straight up to the throne of an oppressor, and then he dethrones him. Story of Musa. Look at it, go through the Quran, you'll find it's a lot in the Quran. To the extent where we have a group of messengers called Ulul Azm. And this word Azm is very, very close to the word Himma. three categories. You have irada first. Irada is an urge to do something. So you just like feel like, I feel we could realize Islamic back. That's it. That's just an urge. There's nothing. There's just an urge. It's a good one. Then you have, that is irada. That's just the first level. And the second stage is where you feel a sense of commitment that I have to do this. I really want to do this. I really, really want to get this done. And then azm is even beyond that, where you persist in every single procedure that is required to get it done. You don't stop, even if you have obstacles to cross. And that is a azm. And certain prophets like Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, like Musa, like Isa alayhi salam, these are the ulul azm. These are the foremost one of azm. My dear brothers and sisters, we can look at their stories for inspiration. فَعُلُوُ الْهِمَّ بَاعِثٌ عَلَى الْتَقَدُّمِ. So know for certain that عُلُوُ الْهِمَّ, Voracity, is the most effective driver of any advancement that you'll achieve. It is the most effective driver of your advancement. And there's a difference between effort and performance. Sometimes you meet people, and please take this only in good sense. Sometimes you meet people and they're talking about how much they're trying. They want to get this, trying here, trying so and so. But we could work hard and we could also work smart. You want to work hard and you also want to work smart. And that will mean conforming to all of the guidelines that we spoke about before. That is the smart part. The working hard part is like people who say, look, I want to be close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so I can just go and stand up in the sun and pray instead. So I feel the difficulty and I'm trying to pray, I'm not coming, so I'm trying. Subhanallah. It's not smart. It's not, this is not Islamic veracity, my dear brothers, that's something else. Veracity is where you work hard and you work smart and there's performance in what you do. We are not in charge of results. We're not in charge of results, but we're required to perform. Get things done. Try to do things that are practical, within your scope, and get it done. Put the effort in the right place at the right time. Timing is also key, as you mentioned earlier on. So with this, inshallah, if still have some more to go, if that is sufficient, then we can stop there for questions. Huh? I'll just take 5 minutes, that's not important. So just to conclude now, my dear brothers and sisters, I know it's late. And the categories, as I promised to mention, the categories of focus, what you want to focus on for this Ulul Himma, your veracity. Where do you want to channel it? Now that you have built this, or you have gone through the Quran, you've read the stories, you've gone through some of the inspiring stories of the Muslim legends, scholars. So you're ready to move now. Where do you place it? You place it in seeking knowledge. We came back full circle. You realize that? Full circle now. You're not ready to place it, but you place it where? In seeking knowledge. But not seeking knowledge full stop. Seeking knowledge, comma. Ibadah, servitude. Servitude. Everything that you know that is near and dear to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and that is done exclusively for Him, then you apply your veracity towards it. Every single thing that you know, whether it's a statement, subhanallah, alhamdulillah, an action, charity, $1, 50 cents, whatever it is. Or anything like that, my dear brothers and sisters. That's your servitude to Allah. Al-istiqamah, your steadfastness. This one is very important as well. Steadfastness is how well you're able to commit and persist in keeping up. خير الأعمال أدومها والإنقاذ. The best of deeds are those that are most persistent. Lead it back to the same concept. That the best of deeds are those that are most persistent, and even though they would be small. البحث على الحق, and research. And this is one of my personal favorites. Research. Research is also tied to ilm. But we're singling out research. We're singling out research because a lot of times you require that as a precursor for some of your projects that you want to do in Islam. And at da'wah, my most favorite, a personal one, my most favorite. Da'wah. You apply it to your da'wah. Everybody here could be involved in da'wah at varying levels. As far as the knowledge take you, you could be involved in da'wah. For every single good that you spread, you get that reward back on you. It's the biggest incentive for you. Had it not been just for this one alone, except just for this one incentive, would have been enough. So, in our da'wah, we need to have this quality because it requires strength, it requires endurance, and you will face obstacles that you've never seen before. So, these my dear brothers and sisters are some words I hope that inshallah could shed some light on veracity in Islam. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from those who have ulul himma, this quality of ulul himma, in the correct context, benefit from this and become high achievers and be inspired to continue to work for His sake. هذا وصلى الله على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.